Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to tackle the topic of LinkedIn, why you want to use it, what are the key components of making it as most impactful as it can be, and some hacks and tips and tricks to make it perform the best for you. Welcome to the Canadian Career Coach. Hi, I'm Keith. Today we're going to look at LinkedIn. And some people think, why do I need LinkedIn? It's just another social media piece. I don't really see the value of it. And I get that. And back in the day when it first started out, possibly, but with LinkedIn in years past purchasing lynda.com, which is the #1 online training videos for anything you want to, that's a whole other discussion I could have. Anything you want to learn online, LinkedIn Learning used to be lynda.com, and then Microsoft bought LinkedIn. So when you have Microsoft, LinkedIn, and all the training that goes along with lynda.com, it's an unstoppable force, and it is where you need to have a presence. It's where recruiters are looking. My take on it is your LinkedIn profile will replace your resume in a single-digit number of years from now. I know many recruiters that I've worked with who, yes, resumes are nice to have, and we will get into that in a future video. But what's going to be at the top of your resume is going to be your phone number, your name, and your LinkedIn profile. And probably before they go through your resume, they're going to click on the LinkedIn profile to see if the brand and the messaging and the experience in your story aligns. So it is crucial to have a LinkedIn profile for many, many different reasons. That's what we're going to walk through today. We're going to walk through the main components of it. That's going to make a most impactful LinkedIn profile. We're going to talk about very specifics. I'll do some screenshots in post-production that show you, that visualize what I'm talking about, and some tips and tricks and hacks to get the most out of it. So the key components that we're going to talk about today are your picture, your headline, your banner, sort of your calling card, your business card at the top of the page, then getting into your about section, which if you'd seen my previous videos, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to go back and watch those on personal brand, because a lot of the components of that are going to fill in the second most important part of your LinkedIn profile, which is the about section, which tells your story and it sort of explains yourself and the why you are seeking why you're seeking roles, the kinds of things you've been pulled to in the past, and where you're looking at going to next. And then the third part would be the experience and the education, making sure those are fulsome stories. This isn't just information drag and drop from your resume. It will speak to it, but it's not going to be copy paste. LinkedIn is another way for people to be learning about your experiences, and it shouldn't be a carbon copy of your resume. Don't make people read things twice. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to leverage things like using groups and postings, getting recommendations, and so forth. But let's kick it off first with your profile image at the top of the page. So first, headshot. Sounds very straightforward. Used to be a big thing, getting a professionally looking headshot with a decent camera, framed and lit properly. Everyone's got one of these in their pocket, so you've already got a great camera to do that with. So getting a good quality image shouldn't be an issue as long as you've got the lighting correct. If you're at home, make sure the light's in front of you. If you're outside, look at the sun. There's plenty of lighting options that you can work with, and every camera being mobile now, you can find a spot. The key things to look for is the framing of it, so not super far back, so your head's just a little pin dot in the picture, and not so much that I can see, the pores on your nose. What we're looking for is your head in the round image of a LinkedIn profile should take up maybe, if you look at the width of it, your head's taking up sort of 1/3. There's a chunk here, your head, or the piece over here. You're smiling. You're professionally dressed. If you are going to an interview for that company, or if you're going to hop on a Zoom call with someone from that firm, how would you be dressed? One of the best things about LinkedIn, and this sort of goes through the rest of my piece, is it's a great resource to learn. Go through, create profiles. There's nothing wrong with that. People are on LinkedIn because they want to be connected with other people. So that's not an issue. Go and look and see which photos stand out to you, what looks appropriate. I'm a big fan of R&D, research and duplicate. See what resonates with you and maybe incorporate that into your structure. So I'm going to be throwing up some pictures as I'm talking here on some appropriate and professional looking photos. The second piece is your background. First and foremost, these are easy. You just don't want to leave it blank. If it's the default blue or teal squirrel that LinkedIn has, that just shows you didn't put any effort into this and you don't have the big attention to detail. And those are probably bullets on the job posting that you may be hoping to apply for someday. So don't leave it blank. Fill something in. Even if you go to Google and you search in LinkedIn backgrounds free, you will get thousands of banners. Using one of those is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can type in LinkedIn banner technology, LinkedIn banner medicine, LinkedIn banner skyline of your favorite city. Whatever you want. It's super easy to research something, put something up there yourself. Don't leave it blank. If you want to use your own photo, that's a great way of doing it too. Some of the best I've seen are with your professional photo being front and center already. The photo behind, maybe it's something that you took. It's a picture of your favorite lake or a sunset or a field, or usually not of yourself or a bunch of other people. If you're going to take the picture yourself, it should reflect yourself. One of the great ones I've seen is a colleague of mine has a picture of themselves, I think shirt and tie, but then the picture of them is, they are an avid canoer. They love being out on the water. There's a lovely, pristine picture of a lake in the background that sort of talks a bit about who they are when they're not at work, when they're not in on the clock. So it's a nice balance of this is how I present myself professionally with the face, and this is what I do when I'm not working in the background. So that can work very, very well as long as it's appropriate. But if you're stuck with that and don't have a proper photo, simply Google LinkedIn, and you will find a plethora of options for you. So that's your head photo, and that's your banner behind you. Shouldn't take very long to get that put together. The third piece is the headline, what's going to go below your photo. And spoiler alert, if you haven't gone back and watched the other videos on the on personal brand, that's where this is going to be one of the areas that you're going to use that. The very, very simple statement. An excellent way to position your headline is a very simple take on your personal brand, starting off with who you are, what are you known for, what kinds of things are you interested in, and where you're looking to going to next. If you had something along the lines of mechanical engineer, passion for technology and enabling digital solutions, excited about the health tech sector or something like that. If you're, if you're a student or if you already have a certain role at a company, they're going to see that in the profile down below. How would you describe yourself to your friends? How would you describe yourself to someone you just recently met? You probably wouldn't just be walking through your resume. You'd say, well, I got my degree in philosophy. I currently work in strategy at a biotech firm, and I really love solving creative problems with interesting teams. That's the kind of thing that, it's a very high level summary of what your resume might allude to later on, but that's the kind of piece you want. And again, with LinkedIn, as you go through and do some research online, you will see some headlines that make complete sense to you and like, wow, I have a great capture of that person now. And others that are just no thought has got into it. Again, creativity, being able to communicate your unique value proposition to people is a huge part of the application and job search process. So LinkedIn is a wonderful resource where you can let that shine. Resumes always will serve a purpose for now, but they're 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. There's very, very limited space. Rarely is the second page read if it's for most applications we've been finding with recruiters. LinkedIn has a scroll wheel. You can go up and down. Not that you want to have ad nauseum, page after page after page of scrolling for people, but you do got some flexibility to tell your stories. And we'll be talking about that in the About section later on in this video. So for now, think about the picture, the banner, and your headline. Those are the three things. Without anyone scrolling at all, that's what they're going to see. Who you are, something of interest behind your head on the page, and summarizing yourself in a couple sentences. I like to use the groups of three. Again, who are you? What are you working on now? Where are you looking at going in the future? Next is the about section. And this is where you really will be leveraging the personal brand that we talked about before. This is your story. This is the longer version of the story. The longest version is the answer you would provide to a tell me about yourself response in a behavioral interview. The second shortest, as I did on my last video using my hands, and I didn't really tell you why I was doing this, but I was visualizing words on a piece of paper. So you're telling me about yourself, it's this long. Your about section on LinkedIn is about this long. The top of your cover letter is about that long. And the one line below your picture on LinkedIn is the simplest version. All four of those are the same story. They all communicate the same thing. So the about section on LinkedIn is the second longest. I don't want to say that's not an appropriate phrase, but you've got some opportunity because again, you've got that scroll button. And this is a version of that. So this is leading with what gets you out of bed every day. Who are you? What interests you? Why are you the way you are? And it's not itemizing your resume. Again, your LinkedIn will do that later on. This is just telling and introducing of yourself to somebody. So again, that following of the who, what, and where is a great equation formula, if you will, to structure. So opening up with your why statement. What gets you out of bed every day? What makes you the happiest? What does your best day kind of day look like? Second section is, again, similar to personal brand, the what or the how. So based on that bold, nebulous, idealistic, utopian statement you've made at the start, which can sound a little buzzwordy, which is fine as long as you back it up. Again, going back to my story of connecting people with services, knowledge, and each other, the next piece of that would be walking through it. And how I've lived that is through working in both retail sales, IT strategy, financing, teaching, and career coaching. It's that common thread through. So that buzzword of being a connector, okay, you've just proved it. Great. Now I know a bit about what your why is. I know where you've done that work and why you enjoy doing it. Now, as an employer, why do I care? So that third part of your about section, and each of these pieces is, by the way, a paragraph with about 4 sentences, 3 sentences, not super, super long. The third section is, again, answering that question, why do I care? And now I'm looking for, because this is what drives me and this is the experience that I've had, I'm looking for opportunities, or I'm excited about working in this space. Again, not listing companies or job titles, but I'm looking forward to have the opportunity to XYZ. If I was applying to a job where I got to do a YouTube channel like this, I would talk about how I've been connecting people with services, knowledge, and each other. And now I want to take that to a larger scale. I'm looking, remuneration and funds aren't my biggest driver right now. It's the ability to cast the information with a wider net and connect with as many people as possible, and appreciate that there's lots of information on how to, navigate your career journey. But with the experience I've had and the feedback I've gotten, that personal touch is absolutely critical to just following these instructions on a list on how to get a job. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to, and that's why I created this channel, to take this to a larger audience. So it's not a job title per se, but it's the explaining why, if you're reading this, you may want to connect with me and engage with me and consider me as a candidate or a solution to your problem. So to summarize, what an appropriate about section could, should, may look like is telling your personal brand story with the key components of why you are who you are, what gets you to bed every day, what energizes you, how you've lived that personal brand over the years, what kinds of things have you been drawn to? You don't have to get into the specifics. That's going to be on your resume and down below on your profile. And then the third piece is and where you would like to implement and embody that going forward. Next piece we're going to get into, we're going to combine a bit. There's your experience, where you've worked in the past, and your education. And they can sort of blend into each other. If you're someone who's very early in their career, maybe you've just finished your education, you don't have a lot of work experience. Well, then you'll be using the same tips and tricks for your education section as we'll be talking about on the experience. For your experience, you're going to be listing the company you worked for, the title that you had, and then a lot of people will just throw a couple of words on, I did this, I did this, I did this, a couple of bullets, very, sort of an abridged version of what may be on your resume. And that's a lost opportunity. Because that's what you were responsible for doesn't necessarily mean that's what you created. Or so many people I've talked to where they'll be explaining their experience to me, and it's, well, my job title was this and this and this, but really, I led this team of this and this and this, and we actually worked on this, which wasn't in my job description, but it's what I executed daily. On a resume, you can't really get into that too much. On your LinkedIn profile, you've got some space. Yes, you have to keep the proper job title that you had at the company. If they were to call and do a reference check, you want to make sure all your data, you never want to stretch the truth heavily on your resume or your LinkedIn profile. But it gives you the opportunity to explain that a bit more. So, for example, if you were one example I would use is if you worked for a company XYZ and you were a product manager, before you put in your bullets, and it's good to have some facts underneath the, where you worked and the job title, but before that, put in there's a concept called the branded narrative that companies use to talk about sort of their vision, mission, values, how they execute on that on a big corporate level. But you can have your own personal one as well too, and you can take it down to the level of per job, where you have your job title in the company, and the first sentence is, I was thrilled to have the opportunity to join this firm after being headhunted, blah, 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 based on my success in XYZ. Or this was a great job for me to move into. It gave me the opportunity to step into a leadership role where I got to lead a team of 10, which I hadn't done before. Or it could be where you're working for a firm that, again, in the world of startups right now, that the person reading your resume might not know who the company is. So you've product manager company XYZ, started working for this new startup based out of San Jose, California, who specializes in this and this and this in the market of, and sort of you're talking a bit more about the company, introducing them and what your role was working for them. So under your experience, when you put the company and your title, give yourself one or two sentences. This isn't a lot. Again, when I talk about writing these things, these are the short little bursts. Introduce what was interesting about the job, what drew you to it, maybe something about the company, not all three, but something that introduces it to you. And then below that, you can leverage your bullets. And these aren't what you're responsible for. That's not good enough. What you're going to want to include are key achievements that I had in this role. And then again, you don't necessarily be the straight bullets from your resume, because bullets on a resume can be fairly long. Single sentences, maybe, 10 to 12 words, had consistently increased sales by 25% year over year for 3 years, developed and recruited and managed a team of 12 and grew the department to 25, exceeded sales goals by whatever that is. This is what I did, not what I was responsible for. This is what I specifically did for that company. These are the things you would hire me for. So this is where it's that branded narrative, where it's you're going to give them the facts, but you're going to set it up a little bit at the start. And as I mentioned before, this isn't dissimilar to what you do with education. So if you went to University of Canada and you took philosophy as your undergrad, okay, great. But you would that's your school and that's the degree you've got. Have a couple sentences on, so why did you choose that? Why did you take that? What was your extracurriculars while you were at school? What were any clubs that you're involved in? Tell me a bit more on the why. A lot of resumes and applications and LinkedIn profiles have a lot of just blatant facts that people think will impress somebody. But until you tell the story around it, it's not nearly as impactful. So the structure that I mentioned with the experience, bit of a setup to it, backstory, if you will, and then key achievements would be the same structure you would use under your education as well. Again, instead of company and your title, it's the school and the degree. And then a bit of a story as to interesting what happened. I mean, if it was an undergrad, you did 4 years there, something happened in 4 years that you can hopefully be able to talk about. And then if there are some key achievements or some key clubs, or you won a case competition, or you were a TA, or whatever that looks like, include that. That tells more about the story. I can now visualize what you were like in that environment. So that's the third main section of your LinkedIn profile, the experience, using the concept of a branded narrative to introduce yourself and the role, and then highlight some key achievements. So in speaking about how you would actually execute on LinkedIn, there's a couple different ways. Posting obviously is what you do after you've got your profile set up, but that can be daunting to some people. There's 3 ways of doing it though. You can simply, if you're going through LinkedIn, you're seeing articles, you're seeing other people's posts, you can like them and you can repost them if you want as well too, which is great. You can repost with your thoughts as well. So you can add some wording to someone else's post, or you can create a brand new post of your own content, which is wonderful. It can be a little bit daunting for some people, but we'll get to that in a second. The first, resharing of something is great. That's an easy touch. If you're doing that all the time, then you're really not engaging. You're just spamming, basically. Light use of that, fully acceptable. I would challenge you to use mostly, if you're going to do a repost with your thoughts. And just, it doesn't have to be a long essay as to why, but why are we reposting it? What is it about that article or that video or whatever that post was that interested you? Share that when you repost it. What truly were your thoughts on it? It can be incredibly valuable to others if you read something that was 4 pages long and you reposted it and with a summary. Love this post by Seth Godin. What was most impactful to me was when he talked about this, and this, because I figure I find that's been the most important aspect of being a successful marketer. So summarize what you've read. So now you become the aggregator for these longer posts that other people have done, which can be very, very helpful. And adding your own spin to it. It's, why does this matter to you? That's important to people. That's a great example of how you synthesize information and then you relay it in a simpler format, which is another bullet that you might see on job postings that you want to apply for. So LinkedIn is a great way to demonstrate your ability to do that. So reposting with your thoughts is invaluable. And then the third part is, of course, posting your own net information. And that doesn't have to be overly daunting. It can just sort of be what you're working on, what you're finding interesting. Links to other things is always great. If you're bringing something else in, again, it's very similar to reposting someone else's with your thoughts. But if what you found isn't on LinkedIn and it was an article somewhere or it was a video somewhere, bring that in. You can add those links into it. And what's wonderful with doing that is when you bring those in, you can give a nod to the person whose content that is. I use that example on Seth Godin before. I've done this several times myself where I'll read it and it's an absolute gem. It's one of his blogs that he does on a website. And I'll repost his blog, full credit to it. I'll mention, thanks at Seth Godin. So he gets tagged in it. Not that it has to be, he's the be all and the end all. It's just a good example that if you look at my profile on LinkedIn, you'll see I've done that a few times. And I've had good responses from it because people, I connect people to service and knowledge in each other. So people may not know about this great resource like the Seth Godins or the Adam Grants or the Simon Sinek's of the world, the Amy Cuddys, that I see something that blows my mind, and I want to share that with my audience as much as possible. I'm not taking credit for any of it, but I found it, and I'm going to connect people to it. So using your profile and your post to do that is a wonderful, wonderful use of that space. If you're a creative writer and you're excited and you've got lots to talk about, wonderful. Go for it. But if you're a little daunted and you're a little unsure on where to start, just what is it that truly interests you? And it's not stuff to impress people, but just it gives posting things with your thoughts gives some insight as to, again, you've given out your why, your personal brand, and the kinds of things that interest you. Well, prove it. And that's, you do that through reposting with sharing your thoughts as well. Using groups. Following groups that truly interest you is a wonderful way to leverage LinkedIn. If you want to message somebody, you've got to get them to connect with you as a contact on LinkedIn. If you have joined a group in which that person is already in that group, if you are passionate about marketing baby food and you join the baby food marketing group on LinkedIn, and if there's someone in that group you want to reach out to, you can message them directly because you're already in the group. You sort of go around the connection piece. So leveraging the groups is a great way of doing it. So again, just don't be spamming everyone in that group or that individual, or it's you find that person in that group, so you join that group even though you don't really want to be in that group, you're just using it to get to the messaging of that person. That's that'll probably blow up pretty quickly when it becomes obvious that that's not what you're interested in. Focus on the groups that you're truly interested in, and in those groups you will probably find some great connections that you can leverage for networking that we'll get into later on. The one piece that I did not mention earlier that is very important is when you are setting up your LinkedIn profile at the beginning, and hopefully I will be sharing some screenshots and some B-roll of this while my voice is talking over it. Go to your settings on LinkedIn first when you've initially set up before you do anything really, and go to your settings, turn on the feature that says don't share profile changes to my audience. And the reason for that is when you're changing your photo, when you're changing your headline, when you're changing your banner, all these things that are these little small tweaks that you're doing, you don't want every one of those to be sent out as a post to your audience. Where someone goes to your profile the very first time to connect with you or to read more about you, and the first 5 posts are your face, and the next 10 posts are the changes to your profile, and then the background photo changes 9 times. You can turn off that. If you have a substantial change in your profile that you want to announce, then you can go in and turn that on and then make the change to your profile, or you can just do a post that tells your story, which is an even better way of doing it. But not sharing your profile updates is a wise thing to do. Learning from experience, where I go and experiment and I play with some things, and I realize every one of those changes, every time I hit the save button on LinkedIn, it sent out a new post to everybody, which wasn't ideal. Another great hack for LinkedIn is when you create your profile, it's going to give you a very generic URL, an address to go to your LinkedIn profile. And generally, it's some component of your name, dash, and a bunch of letters and numbers and gobbledygook after it. So what you can do is under your profile, you can edit your personal URL. So I would recommend highly, it doesn't work for everybody. I've got with a name like Keith McWhirter, I get to have my name on most social media because very few of me exist, thankfully for the world. But you can go and change yours so that it's not just the generic. Again, that goes back to the attention to detail. When you bring it up, and I'll have some B-roll on this as well too, experiment with it. Maybe it is your first dash last name or your first initial your last name, or it's something on that, but you get to create what you want. And it's a chance for you to take control of the brand that you have on LinkedIn. And it's not a be all and the end all, but it shows that you're paying attention. It shows that it's the small details matter to you and you want to put your best foot forward, which again, all these things that you can do on LinkedIn are all indications of how you would be as an employee for that company. So a professional LinkedIn profile is invaluable. The content is important, of course, but like your resume, it's how you put it together, how you present it that is going to catch people's attention first. And thank you again if you've been watching to this point. I appreciate your support of the channel. If you have been liking the video to this point, please consider liking the video. And if you haven't already and are interested in, please hit the subscribe button on the bottom right of your screen right now. I'm not looking to make money off this, but I do want to grow my channel. And, part of my why is to connect people with knowledge and opportunities. So that's what YouTube does for me. So I'm looking for my viewers' help to spread the word even more. And the way you can help for free is to subscribe or to like. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one.